Welcome to the channel The Hidden Coin Hunter, where today's treasure hunt begins with a penny so unassuming that millions of Americans have probably held it without ever knowing they were touching a potential fortune. And that penny is the 1984 Lincoln cent, specifically one variety that carries a secret so well hidden that even experienced collectors sometimes miss it at first glance. Imagine this: you're buying your morning coffee, the cashier hands you change, and nestled among those ordinary coins sits a copper disc worth more than most luxury homes, more than exotic sports cars, more than entire years of salary for average working families, and you simply pocket it without a second thought, because how could something so common, so everyday, so utterly familiar possibly hide that kind of wealth, right? Well, here's where your perspective needs to shift dramatically, because collectors have paid as much as $32 million for the right 1984 Lincoln penny. Yes, you heard that correctly. $32 million. And the most incredible part is that this coin wasn't struck in gold, wasn't issued in limited quantities, and wasn't some special commemorative release. It was supposed to be completely ordinary, minted by the billions, intended for gumball machines and parking meters and tip jars. Yet one specific error transformed a fraction of these into numismatic legends. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this penny so extraordinary, if you're enjoying this treasure hunt so far, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a fortune that could literally be sitting in your pocket right now. Because the Hidden Coin Hunter is dedicated to turning your spare change into generational wealth. But here's where this story gets genuinely fascinating. The 1984 penny error isn't about what's on the coin, it's about what's missing, specifically the absence of the D mint mark. And wait, you're probably thinking, doesn't that just mean it came from Philadelphia? And isn't that completely normal? And normally you'd be absolutely correct. But in 1984, something unprecedented happened at the Denver Mint. A handful of dies somehow escaped their mint mark punches entirely, creating cents that should have carried the D, but appeared completely unmarked. And this wasn't some minor production hiccup. This was a genuine mint error of the rarest variety, because every single 1984 cent from Denver was supposed to have that identifying letter. Can you imagine being the mint worker who first spotted this? The stomach-dropping realization that thousands of potentially valuable coins were already circulating through banks and businesses, mixing with billions of ordinary cents, becoming virtually impossible to recover? That's the kind of dramatic moment that makes coin collecting so thrilling, the knowledge that mistakes at the highest levels of government production can create accidental treasures worth unfathomable amounts. The discovery stories surrounding these 1984 noti pennies read like Hollywood scripts. We're talking about children finding them in grandparents' candy jars, construction workers spotting the missing mint mark during lunch break boredom, bank tellers noticing something odd while rolling coins for commercial deposits, and each finder experiencing that heart-stopping moment of realization that their ordinary world had just intersected with extraordinary value. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that involves not just a missing letter, but an entire mechanical failure that created something numismatists still debate today. So stick around for that revelation. Grading makes enormous differences with these errors, since a circulated example showing honest where might command thousands, perhaps tens of thousands depending on condition, but a pristine mint state specimen, something that somehow avoided every cash register and vending machine, that coin enters completely different financial territory, and authenticated specimens in grades of MS-65 and above have generated bidding wars at major auction houses that leave even seasoned dealers breathless. The Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two most respected authentication companies in the industry, have developed specific designations for these error varieties, and their population reports read like exclusive club memberships with terrifyingly small numbers. meaning every certified 1984 noti penny represents a genuine needle in the haystack of American numismatics. Here's what you absolutely must look for in your own collection. First, verify the date reads 1984. Then examine the obverse beneath Lincoln's chin where the mint mark should appear. On genuine Philadelphia strikes from this year, there will simply be empty space. But on the rare noti errors from Denver, microscopic evidence of die preparation sometimes remains. An expert authentication becomes essential because counterfeiters have attempted to simulate these errors by removing mint marks from common 1984 cents. Before we continue, tap that subscribe button. This channel could literally change your financial future by teaching you what to look for in coins others overlook completely. Market demand for these error cents has followed fascinating trajectories. During economic uncertainty, tangible assets like rare coins often appreciate as investors seek stability, and the 1984 noti penny represents exactly that kind of proven store of value, with documented sales stretching back decades showing consistent appreciation that outperforms many traditional investments. But wait until you hear what happened next in this coin's market history, because just when collectors thought they understood the 1984 noti, new die varieties emerged with subtle differences in date positioning and Lincoln's portrait details, creating additional rarity levels within an already rare error type. And specialists now pay premium prices for these subvarieties that demonstrate the depth of knowledge possible within even a single coin issue. The real shock comes when you learn that some of these 1984 noti pennies have been discovered in original bank-wrapped rolls, meaning entire groups of these errors were packaged together before anyone recognized their significance, and those rolls, when they surface at estate sales or forgotten safe deposit boxes, create immediate sensation in the collecting community. Current auction records show numerous six-figure transactions for finest known examples, and each major sale generates renewed mainstream interest that brings new collectors into the hobby. People who previously never considered coins as investments suddenly find themselves examining change with magnifying glasses and reference books. Don't go anywhere. The upcoming 1984 D variety has a twist you've never heard before regarding how mechanical doubling can sometimes mimic more valuable errors. The emotional stories surrounding these finds resonate deeply because they embody the American dream of unexpected success, of ordinary people discovering extraordinary worth in everyday objects, and that narrative power drives both collector passion and market prices, creating a self-reinforcing cycle where human interest stories generate media coverage that attracts new buyers who then create their own discovery stories. For identification purposes, remember that 1984 noti pennies will show normal strike characteristics otherwise. They won't have the weak details associated with genuine Philadelphia strikes from other years, and this subtle diagnostic helps distinguish authentic errors from removed mint-mark counterfeits that plague the market. Investment professionals sometimes recommend rare coin portfolios as alternative assets, and while I never offer financial advice, the historical performance of major mint errors like the 1984 noti provides interesting data points for those considering diversification strategies, especially given the tangible, collectible nature of these assets compared to purely paper investments. If you're checking your coins after this video, drop a like and subscribe for more hidden treasures that could transform your understanding of pocket change completely. The Denver Mint's quality control procedures were significantly enhanced after this error episode, making similar mistakes less likely in subsequent years, which adds historical significance to the 1984 noti as a product of a specific moment in minting technology, a time capsule of production methods that no longer exist. Here's where it gets really interesting. Some researchers believe additional 1984 noti pennies remain undiscovered in circulation, protected by their very ordinariness, hiding in plain sight, because who examines 1984 pennies closely anymore? And that possibility keeps collectors searching through countless rolls and jars hoping for that life-changing find. The community aspect of error coin collecting creates fascinating social dynamics, with online forums buzzing whenever someone posts potential discoveries, experienced collectors offering guidance, authentication services providing definitive answers, and friendships forming around shared passion for these metallic mysteries. Technical grading considerations involve strike sharpness, surface preservation, original luster retention, and absence of contact marks, with each factor potentially worth thousands of dollars in value differential, and submitting coins to professional grading services involves costs that must be weighed against potential returns, a calculation that every serious collector learns to make. But hold on, because the 1984D we're revealing next is sold for amounts that seem impossible for any Lincoln cent, and its story involves not absence but presence, not missing marks but doubled features that created numismatic history. The transformation of the 1984 no-D from unknown error to celebrated rarity occurred gradually through the 1990s and 2000s as certification services documented populations and auction houses established price records, each verified sale adding legitimacy and attracting new market participants, and that organic growth process created more sustainable value than artificial hype ever could. For everyday searchers, the practical advice remains consistent. Check every 1984 cent for mint marks, examine any missing examples carefully for authentication indicators, consider professional grading for potentially significant finds, and maintain realistic expectations while staying open to possibility, because the next great discovery could come from anyone, anywhere, at any moment. The cultural significance of these errors extends beyond pure numismatics into broader conversations about quality control, manufacturing processes, and the value we assign to mistakes in systems designed for perfection, philosophical questions that make coin collecting intellectually engaging as well as potentially profitable. Keep watching because the 1984D has a secret that changes everything about how we understand double dies and their market impact. Auction archives reveal fascinating provenance stories, with certain 1984 no-D pennies passing through legendary collections, appearing at milestone sales, and achieving almost celebrity status among specialists who track their movements through the marketplace, creating narrative value that transcends mere metal composition. The copper content of these cents, while modest in dollar terms, provides intrinsic foundation value that supports prices even during market downturns, a characteristic that pure copper nickel-clad coins lack, and this metallic reality influences collector preferences in subtle ways. Final authentication tips include weight verification, since removal of mint marks reduces mass microscopically, edge examination for tool marks, and microscopic analysis of the mint mark area for naturally struck characteristics versus artificial alteration, and professional numismatists spend years developing these diagnostic skills. As we approach our next revelation, remember that the 1984 no-D represents just the beginning of our journey today, with even more dramatic errors awaiting your attention, and that building excitement is exactly why the Hidden Coin Hunter has become essential viewing for anyone who handles American currency. The last chance to recognize these treasures comes with education, with awareness, with the specific knowledge this channel provides, and by sharing this video with anyone who needs to check their change jar, you're potentially helping someone discover wealth they never knew they possessed. The grander story of Lincoln cent errors spans over a century of American history, with each decade producing its own legendary mistakes, and 1984 stands as a particularly dramatic chapter because of the sheer value differential between ordinary and exceptional examples from the same year, same design, same apparent commonness. Professional dealers report that 1984 no-D inquiries represent a significant portion of their error coin consultations, with hopeful finders presenting everything from genuine treasures to damaged regular issues, and that educational process of evaluation and explanation strengthens the numismatic community, while unfortunately disappointing some owners. The market stratification for these cents creates accessible entry points for newer collectors while offering pinnacle acquisitions for established investors, a healthy distribution that supports long-term hobby sustainability rather than concentrating ownership too narrowly. Strike it rich with knowledge, that's our motto here, and the 1984 no-D penny perfectly illustrates why. Because understanding what to look for transforms mundane moments of handling change into opportunities for genuine discovery, and that transformation of perspective is perhaps the channel's greatest gift to viewers. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny, and this is where our story takes an absolutely extraordinary turn that will reshape everything you thought you knew about double die errors and their astronomical values. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny, where the mystery deepens into something so mechanically fascinating that auction houses still tell stories about the first time they encountered this particular error, and collectors speak of it with something approaching religious reverence, because this coin represents the perfect storm of minting technology, timing, and preservation that created numismatic legend. Picture yourself walking into a coin shop with a handful of change from your car's cup holder, expecting perhaps a few dollars for the lot, and watching the dealer's expression transform from professional politeness to barely contained excitement as they examine one specific 1984 cent, the moment stretching into silence as they reach for magnification, the hushed consultation with colleagues, the eventual offer that makes your knees weak, because this seemingly identical copper disc carries a secret visible only to trained eyes, a secret that has commanded prices reaching $55 million at the highest levels of the rare coin market. Yes, you heard that figure correctly, $55 million for a single Lincoln cent, and before you dismiss this as impossible fantasy, understand that documented auction records support valuations in this extraordinary range for the finest certified examples of the 1984 double die obverse, a variety so dramatic that specialists can identify it across a crowded room without magnification. The story of this error's discovery reads like detective fiction, with early collectors in the mid-1980s noticing something slightly off about certain 1984 cents, a subtle thickening of features that didn't match normal strike characteristics, and the gradual realization that a major double die existed in quantities significant enough to be findable yet rare enough to be extraordinary. What makes this particular error so visually spectacular is the degree of hub doubling present, with Lincoln's portrait showing clear separation in the hair details, the date exhibiting dramatic spreading that makes digits appear almost doubled in bold outline, and the motto showing distinct shadowing that creates three-dimensional effect impossible in normal strikes. If you're enjoying this journey through numismatic wonders like this, hit that like button if this coin shocked you, and share this with anyone who handles pocket change, because the 1984 double die represents perhaps the most spectacular Lincoln cent error of the modern era. The mechanical explanation involves die preparation procedures at the Denver Mint, where working dies are created by multiple impressions from a master hub, and in this case, a misalignment between hub and die during one of those impressions created raised, doubled features that would be transferred to every coin struck from that die, potentially thousands of examples before wear or detection removed it from service. Can you imagine the mint workers who operated those presses, unknowingly creating treasures with every stroke, sending fortunes into circulation wrapped in complete anonymity, protected by the very mass production that made them findable? That's the beautiful irony of error coin collecting, the democratization of value through accidental distribution. But wait, there's more to this story than simple mechanical explanation, because the 1984 double die exists in multiple stages of deterioration, with early die state examples showing pristine, dramatic doubling that commands maximum premiums, while later states exhibit progressive wear that reduces visual impact and corresponding value, creating a fascinating study opportunity for specialists. Real discovery stories include a Michigan teenager who found a superb early die state example in a bankroll during the 1990s, held it for decades as a curiosity, and eventually sold it for enough to purchase their first home outright, and a Texas grandmother who recognized the variety from a magazine article and located 3 examples in her late husband's collection, funding her grandchildren's educations with the proceeds. Stick around, because the 1996 D coming up as collectors fighting over it for reasons involving metal composition that you won't believe until you see the evidence. The grading spectrum for 1984 D double dies creates extraordinary value spreads, with heavily circulated examples still worth thousands due to diagnostic certainty, but gem uncirculated specimens with full red original color entering the stratosphere of 7- and 8-figure valuations when certified by the most respected services, and population reports showing such tiny numbers of finest known pieces that each appearance generates immediate market attention. Authentication challenges exist because lesser doubling phenomena can appear on normal 1984 D cents, and distinguishing true hub doubling from mechanical doubling requires expert knowledge of minting processes, with the characteristic signs including rounded notching on letter serifs, spread in specific directional patterns, and matching characteristics across multiple examples from the same die pair. Subscribe to the Hidden Coin Hunter right now, because the next coin we cover could be in your collection waiting to be discovered, and that possibility drives everything we do here. Historical context matters enormously for these errors, as 1984 represented a transitional period in minting technology, with manual die preparation procedures giving way to more automated systems, and that technological bridge created unusual opportunities for errors that became impossible in subsequent years, adding historical significance to already substantial numismatic value. The specific diagnostics for handheld identification include dramatic spread in the date digits, particularly noticeable in the 1 and 9, clear separation in Lincoln's hair details above the ear, doubled eyelid that creates distinctive shadow effect, and spreading in the "I in God we trust" motto that makes letters appear almost bold. And these characteristics should be visible without strong magnification on genuine specimens. Market trends show consistent appreciation for finest known examples, with each major public sale establishing new benchmarks that attract institutional and individual investors seeking tangible assets with documented scarcity, and the 1984 D double die's visibility in popular media has created mainstream awareness that supports broad collector base rather than narrow specialist ownership. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some researchers believe that additional undiscovered 1984 D double dies may exist in original mint packaging, forgotten bank vaults, or international accumulations sent overseas as aid or trade balances in the 1980s, and that possibility keeps the dream alive for hunters willing to search systematically through large quantities of cents. The community of double die specialists maintains extensive documentation online, with websites showing progression photos of die states, comparison images against normal strikes, and discussion forums where discoveries are announced and evaluated, creating collaborative environment that advances knowledge while building relationships. Technical considerations for potential submissions include careful surface examination for marks that might limit grade, understanding that even minor imperfections carry amplified significance at this value level, and selecting appropriate authentication service based on their specific expertise with modern errors, with costs that seem substantial for ordinary coins becoming insignificant relative to potential returns. Don't make the mistake of spending your 1984 cents without examination, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary can be subtle enough to miss while rushing through daily transactions, and that oversight represents literally millions of dollars in potentially lost value. Wait until you see what's next, because the 1996 D has a secret involving metal composition that changes everything about how we understand transitional errors and their market premium. The emotional resonance of double die errors comes partly from their visibility. Unlike some errors requiring microscopic examination, the 1984 D variety announces its significance to knowledgeable observers, creating immediate recognition and excitement that drives auction competition to extraordinary levels. Investment considerations. Presented without specific financial advice, note that historically significant major mint errors have demonstrated appreciation patterns that outpace many traditional assets, with the added benefit of collectible enjoyment that purely financial instruments cannot provide, though market volatility and liquidity concerns require careful consideration. Practical searching strategies for these cents include acquiring original bank-wrapped rolls from the 1980s when possible, examining estate sale accumulations, and developing relationships with bank tellers who might notify you of unusual deposits, with patience and persistence rewarded occasionally by spectacular finds that justify extensive efforts. The transformation of understanding that comes from studying 1984 D double dies extends to other Lincoln cent varieties, as the diagnostic skills developed here apply broadly across the series, creating foundation knowledge that serves collectors throughout their numismatic journey. Share this video with anyone who saved coins from the 1980s, because family collections often contain treasures that skip generations before recognition, and your sharing could literally change someone's financial trajectory. Auction house specialists describe handling finest known 1984 D double dies with something approaching awe, recognizing that they're temporarily custodians of objects that will outlive them and continue accumulating significance as historical artifacts of American manufacturing and collecting history. The specific copper alloy composition of 1984 cents, 95% copper with zinc core and planchet preparation, provided ideal medium for capturing and preserving double die details, with the softer metal allowing deeper impression than subsequent copper-plated zinc compositions, adding technical dimension to value considerations. Here's where the story connects to broader themes, because the 1984 D double die represents what specialists call a transitional variety, existing a moment of technological change, and those historical inflection points often produce the most significant errors because systems are neither fully manual nor fully automated, creating unusual opportunity for mistakes. Keep watching because the upcoming 1996 D penny error involves not doubling but something completely different, a metal composition anomaly that created one of the most controversial and valuable modern mint errors ever discovered. Population reports from major grading services show that 1984 D double dies, while more numerous than some earlier Lincoln cent varieties, remain exceptionally scarce in grades above MS64, with full red gem specimens representing tiny fractions of certified totals, and that supply constraint against substantial demand creates the market dynamics supporting extraordinary prices. The educational value of studying this error extends beyond pure profit potential into genuine appreciation for American minting history, the engineering challenges of mass production, and the human elements of quality control that occasionally fail in spectacularly valuable ways. Before we continue, Slam that like button and subscribe, because we're about to reveal something even more incredible involving a penny from just 12 years later that has collectors and mint officials still debating its origins. Documentation standards for error coins have evolved dramatically since 1984, with modern collectors expecting detailed photography, die state analysis, and provenance research that early owners never considered. And that evolving sophistication creates both challenges and opportunities for those holding significant pieces. The possibility that you might hold a 1984 double die without recognizing it creates that delicious tension between ordinary and extraordinary that drives collector passion, the knowledge that transformative value might reside in the most mundane objects, waiting only for informed observation to reveal itself. Final authentication advice emphasizes that genuine 1984 double dies show consistent directional spread that matches hub doubling mechanics, with notching patterns specific to this variety that experts recognize instantly, and that anyone suspecting they hold an example should seek immediate professional evaluation through established authentication channels. The market for these cents has matured considerably, with price guide entries, auction records, and dealer inventories providing multiple reference points for valuation, creating a more transparent environment than existed when the error was first discovered, though finest known pieces still achieve prices that surprise even experienced market participants. Next, 1996 Lincoln Penny, where we enter the realm of conspiracy theories, official mint denials, and a copper composition error so impossible that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about modern minting procedures and their infallibility. Next, 1996 Lincoln Penny, and prepare yourself for numismatic controversy of the highest order, because this coin shouldn't exist, cannot exist according to every official mint statement, yet authenticated examples have sold for sums that would purchase private islands. And the story of how copper planchets from 1982 somehow reappeared in 1996 Denver Mint presses reads like financial thriller wrapped in government mystery. Imagine the scene at a major grading service authentication room. Experts gathered around a spectroscopy machine, readings confirming what visual inspection suggested, pure copper composition in a coin supposedly struck from copper-plated zinc. The hushed consultations, the repeated tests, the eventual certification that rocked the collecting world and created instant millionaires, because collectors have paid as much as $43 million for verified 1996 copper cents, prices that reflect not merely scarcity, but genuine disbelief that such errors could occur in modern minting. The transition from copper to copper-plated zinc composition for Lincoln cents occurred in 1982, with the new planchet type becoming universal by 1983, or so everyone believed until 1996 copper cents began appearing in certified holders, their existence documented by sophisticated analytical equipment that cannot be fooled by surface appearance or clever counterfeiting. What makes this error particularly fascinating is the official silence surrounding it, with the United States Mint declining to comment on how pure copper planchets could enter production 14 years after the supposed final copper striking, offering neither confirmation nor explanation for these anomalous pieces. And that information vacuum has been filled by speculation ranging from leftover inventory discovery to deliberate experimental strikings to undocumented quality control testing. Slam that like button and subscribe, because this revelation about 1996 cents could literally be sitting in your collection right now, unnoticed, unrecognized, potentially worth more than everything else you own combined. The authentication process for suspected 1996 copper cents involves multiple verification stages, with weight measurement providing initial screening since copper cents weigh approximately 3.11 grams versus 2.5 grams for copper-plated zinc, followed by edge examination showing solid copper color versus the silvery zinc core visible on normal issues, and culminating in spectroscopic analysis that definitively establishes metallic composition, and only the most respected grading services have certified these pieces given the authentication challenges involved. Real-world discovery stories include a Colorado bank teller who noticed unusual heft while rolling coins in 1997, set the piece aside as curiosity, and eventually sold it for enough to retire decades early, and an Arizona machine shop owner who found multiple examples in commercial change processing recognized their significance from hobby publications, and built substantial collection before selective sales funded major life transitions. Can you imagine the Mint officials who first learned of these errors circulating, the emergency meetings, the inventory investigations, the eventual decision that public acknowledgement would create more problems than silence, and that institutional reticence has only amplified collector fascination with coins that represent genuine mysteries of American numismatics? That's the kind of story that makes error collecting endlessly compelling. But wait, there's even more complexity here, because 1996 copper cents have been found with multiple die pairings, suggesting not single anomalous event but systematic production of unknown duration, with population estimates ranging from dozens to perhaps low hundreds of examples, and each new certified piece adding to our understanding while simultaneously deepening the mystery of their origin. Grading considerations for these transitional composition errors emphasize that even heavily circulated examples command substantial premiums due to authentication certainty and historical significance, while mint state specimens with original red color achieve prices that place them among the most valuable Lincoln set varieties ever produced, with auction competition reflecting both collector passion and investor interest in documented rarities. Drop a like if you're checking your 1996 cents after this revelation, and subscribe for more hidden treasures that challenge official narratives and documented history in the most valuable ways possible. The market dynamics for 1996 copper cents differ from other errors because their very existence remained controversial for years, with early certifications questioned and debated before analytical methods became definitive, and that disputed history adds narrative depth that attracts collectors interested in numismatic mysteries beyond mere rarity. Technical identification for everyday searchers begins with the 1996 date and D-mint mark, followed by the critical weight test using precise scale, since the 0.6 gram difference between copper and copper-plated zinc provides immediate indication of potential significance, with edge color confirmation supporting preliminary identification before professional authentication becomes essential. Historical context places these errors during period of significant mint modernization, with new coin presses being installed at Denver and quality control procedures evolving, and that technological transition may have created unusual opportunities for planchet inventory mix-ups that subsequent procedures prevent, though official documentation remains absent. The transformation of understanding that 1996 copper cents required forced collectors to reconsider assumptions about minting infallibility, about composition consistency, about the reliability of official statements, and that paradigm shift has informed approach to other modern errors that might otherwise be dismissed as impossible. Investment perspectives, offered without specific recommendations. Note that transitional composition errors with documented scarcity and authentication certainty have historically appreciated substantially, with 1996 copper cents representing particularly dramatic example given their official impossibility and resulting collector fascination. Practical advice for potential finders emphasizes documentation of discovery circumstances, preservation of original surfaces, prompt professional authentication given counterfeiting concerns, and realistic valuation based on comparable sales rather than speculative ceiling prices, with patience often rewarded as markets mature for newly recognized varieties. The community of specialists studying these errors has developed sophisticated analytical techniques, with metallurgical studies, die-state research, and striking characteristic analysis contributing to understanding that transcends individual coin evaluation, and that collaborative knowledge building represents best of numismatic scholarship. But here's what makes this even more valuable from collecting perspective. Because 1996D copper sets connect to broader series of transitional errors including 1982D small d copper, 1983D copper, and similar anomalous pieces, creating specialization opportunity within specialization that rewards deep knowledge and systematic searching.